Cancer, this is your week ahead astrology forecast by Astrology Motivation by Born Without Boundaries. In these weekly videos, I review the major planetary aspects and transits and how they impact your natal sun and what that means for your day-to-day. All you need to know to enjoy these videos is your birth date. That's it. If you want a deeper, more specific translation of the energies, then grab your natal chart after this video. They're free. They're easy to get. You need your birth date, time, and location. And within like a couple of seconds, these websites will spit out a free natal chart for you. So if you don't have one yet, eventually think of getting it. But for right now, all you need to know is the day you were born. That's it. I'm going to start out really broad with the big stuff, you know, sort of like the global meta-conscious energy. And then I'm going to focus down into Cancer-specific energy. And then I'm going to focus on breaking everything down into the 3 decans of Cancer. Decan is a group of 10 degrees. And by breaking them down into 3 different groups of 10 degrees, I can see how your natal suns are being impacted and what effects they'll have specifically on you, because not all Cancers are being impacted by the other planets in the same way. And that will make for a much more accurate reading than traditional horoscopes, which are just bad astrology. They're not even astrology. I'm not even really sure what they're doing. So come along with me. Let's start out really broad. This is for July 14th to the 20th of 2023. I have my notes written down. That's why I keep looking. If I don't write it here, I don't get it up here. So I've got to write it down. There's a lot of big stuff happening this week, and all of it revolves around the moon. So this is a really impactful week for us, a week that I feel like a lot of dynamic changes are going to happen. If not externally, then definitely internally, where a crack happens and we turn a corner. We're really at a toggle point here in terms of our ego and our sense of self. So both of the biggest events happen on the 17th of July. The first is the new moon in Cancer. So this happens every single year, but not every single year is it in opposition to Pluto. It's also simultaneously trine to Neptune and sextile to Uranus. So it is interacting with almost every big outer planet. It's interacting with it. And in conjunction with this new moon, we have a lot of other things interacting alongside it. We have Mercury that's square to Jupiter, and we have Saturn that's in opposition to Mars. All of these create a fantastic energy for, I'm not going to take this anymore. I need new. New is coming. And I'm not waiting for it to happen. This is almost like a click into place for a new mentality. And then the other big thing is that there's a nodal shift. So every 18 months, the nodes of the moon shift. The nodes, of course, aren't planets. They're demarcations in the sky. And what it sort of means is the mentality shift of basically the planet. What path are we traveling on? What duality are we really focused on right now? And the duality now on the 17th becomes the duality of Libra and Aries, the duality that they represent. So Libra represents partnership and experiencing and knowing who you are and what life is through partnership with another person. And then on the other side, Aries, which is singularity and finding your individuality, yourself, your physical self, your body, doing things solo. So there's this duality shift now where I think we're going to start to notice a lot of arguments, a lot of shifts, a lot of policy changes based on this duality mentality of singularity versus partnership. And they're really not one versus the other. They're both actually linked. The South Node and the North Node are demarcations of the same spiritual path. So it's basically finding the conduit and the connection between the two. So let's get into a few other things that I touched upon, but I want to go over. We have Mars opposite Saturn. That's a tough energy, especially since Saturn is also semi-square to Chiron. And Mars is, I think it's quincunx to Chiron. There's this kind of difficult energy because Mars opposite Saturn is it feels like I'm being restricted. I can't move forward. Like somebody's holding me back. Rules, laws, regulations. Like no matter what I do, especially with that Saturn semi-square to Chiron, no matter what I do, no matter how hard I try, it's not going to matter because I'm never going to be given the permission. There's all this weight on me. I can't, it's not even I can't. I try, I get nowhere. It's very discouraging. It's very depressed. It's very anxiety ridden. And so there's a lot of that going on right now that is creating a pressure cooker of sorts. We also have what I touched upon, the Mercury square to Jupiter, which is a whole ton of shit talk or information that's coming out like crazy, and there's like too much too fast. We don't even know what to do with it. It's overwhelming. That could also create a sense of tension or anxiety, or it could be what we're using to release the anxiety or tension. Just talk, say anything. It could also be a device that people are using to be like, listen, if I'm not going to get my way, or I'm not going to be able to move in the direction I want to move, because it's really not about arrogance or selfishness. It's about, I'm tired of the restrictions. I'm tired of the confinements. I'm tired of the chains. So I'm just going to make promises left and right and see which one that lands and catch up to it later. There could be very much that mentality going on this week. And then the consciousness shift represented by the nodal shift, and then the opposition of this new moon in Cancer, which is all about loving the family, protecting the family, considering the family, or making space for growth and nurturing you and the people that you care about the most, in opposition to Pluto, which is a tremendously intense energy of get this done. It must happen. This is it's an extreme energy that creates, once again, I think a lot of tension, to say the least. The moon opposite Pluto by itself is extremely emotional, sometimes even paranoid, but very pop-offish and extreme, like extreme emotions. But with this new moon, it's just telling me it's going to be an extreme new moon. And because it is also semi-square to the sun, to the nodes, it's telling me it's going to force us to turn this corner personally and then maybe globally. So let me go into a couple of other transits that I wanted to talk about because I think they're important. I mentioned that the the new moon is also going to be sextile to Uranus, which means I want my individuality. I want to stand out. Now, it's not necessarily even to be seen. It's just, I'm tired of the same old, right? It's all about my personal uniqueness and finding opportunities for my personal uniqueness. And then it's also trying to Neptune. And I love this energy. I love when the sun is trying to Neptune, the moon is trying to Neptune, because I think there's harmony in the infinitely possible. There's no such thing as the impossible. It can get overwhelming in that there is no script for it. There's no context for it or structure for it, but that's what creativity is, right? And so there's this pressure cooker that we're in, but the relief valves are Uranus and Neptune, which is just the infinitely possible. And so I feel like there's just a lot of information that's coming out, and all these restrictions and confinements are really going to teach us or push us into the direction to see just what we're capable of. But in good ways. They're going to push us outside of our cocoon and into this next level of everything that we can be. And this could happen on the human global level too, where information comes out or stuff is learned, or we discover these things that makes us think again about what is humanity, who are we really, and what are we capable of. So let's go into Cancer-specific energy. And for Cancer-specific energy, I look at two things. I look at what's going on in the zodiac sign of Cancer, and then I look at the moon, which is our ruling dignitary. And the moon changes every 2.5 days. So there's always stuff going on with the moon, but the moon will hit certain points where it'll be bigger and you'll feel it more intensely. So in Cancer, we have the sun. We have the new moon happening on the 17th at 25 degrees Cancer. We have the sun traveling between 22 and 27 degrees Cancer, which means it is in the third decan of Cancer. And then we have the moon traveling in Cancer between the 15th and the 17th, and it'll hit every single angle, 0 through 29 degrees between the 15th and the 17th of July. So we have the sun and the moon in Cancer between the 15th and the 17th. This whole time is going to be a very big energy for us. But let's see how the moon is interacting with everything else along its way. This whole week, between the 14th and the 20th, the moon is traveling between Gemini and Virgo, which already made me, conversation. Conversation and communication. This is all about exchange of information between Gemini and Virgo, right? But it's emotional because it's got to do with the moon, right? So I don't know if it's desperate. I don't know if it's optimistic. All I know is it matters. It matters more deeply than intellectual exchange. So on the 15th, we have the moon entering Cancer from Gemini. And that moon in Cancer tends to make us more lazy. It makes us laid back. We could actually get more emotional because there's no boundaries to help us really feel comfortable in it. So this new moon is going to be particularly emotional for us, though I think we will find strength around that time. On the 17th, the moon conjuncts the sun for the new moon, at which time it will also be sextile to Uranus, opposite Pluto, and trine to Neptune. So the moon is now at almost like it's like a shine. It's like the light turns on and illuminates during this dark moon of everything that's possible. And then between the 18th and the 19th, the moon is going to be conjunct to Mercury. So and this is in Leo. So, oh my God, we are going to emotionally spew on this day because it's going to be square to Jupiter at the same time. So 17th to the 18th, emotional, like diarrhea, emotional vomit, just coming out. It enters Virgo between the 19th and 20th, and by the 20th, it conjuncts Mars, so it's opposite Saturn. This is super resentful energy. Super resentful, angry, pop-off-ish around the 20th. Be aware. On the 19th, let me go back. It also conjuncts Venus as well. That means it's trying it to Chiron, healing wounds, maybe talking about what it needs to heal wounds, because this is happening in Leo too. Venus is slowing down. It's getting closer to its retrograde. There is that sense of emotional, real deep emotions about what you care about, what you feel strongly about, what matters most to you, to heal, to purge. And then I note that the trine is just a few days after the trine, on the 22nd. Hold on. Oh, I understand. So this week, I'm only going up through the 20th, but what I'm noting here is that on the 22nd, there becomes a grand trine between Pluto, Uranus, and the moon. Pluto is in Capricorn, Uranus is in Taurus, and so the moon then is in Virgo. So but while it's at the very end of Virgo, suddenly it forms this grand trine in Earth. So what that tells me is something is getting firmed up. Something is clicking in and making sense by that time. So it's almost like, because that's the impact that Earth energy has on the moon. It's stabilizing. So something, not confining, stabilizing. So after this angry outburst on the 20th, it'll eventually get to this grand trine where there is sort of harmony with what is and where we fit in that what is. So this is a whirlwind for the next, say, 8-9 days for us of emotions, but sense comes back. And I just want you guys to know that. Let's get into the decans. If you know that your natal sun is between 0 and 9 degrees Cancer, you are Cancer 1. This correlates to Cancer birthdays between the 22nd and the 31st of, or the 30th, or 22nd and the 30th of June, or the 1st of July. So it's right there, first 10 days of Cancer season. Your natal suns are going to be sextile to Mars. Cusps, if you're born at the cusp, which is like the 22nd, 23rd, they're going to be sextile to Venus still as well. What does this mean? A lot of opportunities when it comes to romance, a lot of opportunities when it comes to your energy levels and your sexuality and your sex drive, all of those things, all of those goodies. But because Mars is impacted the way it is by Saturn, this could also be finding release from restrictions, using sexuality to find release. I'm sorry, kisses. I just kicked my dog. I'm so sorry. To find release from feeling like you're held back in some way. But confronting it and trying to use your physical self to help move things along. You also have a semi-square to Chiron. A semi-square to Mercury, which means communication can be a little bit messed up. Not terrible, but it's like almost like you can't say what you want to say. You can't put into words what you want to put into words. In terms of written communications, it's just a little more, not difficult. Well, it's a little more challenging than it should. This isn't the best time to try to express something important. Just wait the week. Your natal suns are also semi-square to Jupiter, which also means that you feel like you're rushing. It's like you're rushing. And that could be why when it comes to semi-square to Mercury, there's this sense of, okay, you're rushing. You're rushing too fast. You're trying to say things too fast, or your mind's going too fast to get it out correctly. So the secret there would be to just slow down. Like, take a breath, count to 10, and don't try to speak until you're absolutely sure of that it's right? Just the secret is just to do whatever you have to do to slow yourself down. It'll help you communicate better. Your natal suns are sextile to the North Node and trine to the South Node, which means this is an opportunity for your future, and you're looking toward the future, and you're excited about it, and you're okay with where you've come from, and you're learning how to use where you've come from for to help advance where you're going. So since the nodes are shifting, and now this becomes the difference between singularity and duality, this could be finding a supportive partnership that actually helps you be a better version of yourself or feel more independent. That could be what's clicking into place at this point. We also have your natal suns trine to Saturn, which means in terms of your career, rules, laws, regulations, there's kind of a harmony that can get struck there, and a balance or a healing of situations with regards to those subject matters. And that's long term. So it's not like it's going to click into place just this week, but overall, over this year, there is a nice sentiment or a nice feeling of smoothing those things over. And then it's on the 15th, when the moon enters Cancer, that it's going to conjunct your natal suns. And that really is almost like, call it the mini new moon, because the moon it's not the new moon, but the moon is conjuncting your natal suns. So there is a sense of understanding who you are, wholeness and completeness, and a little uptick of confidence when it comes to your inner self and your external self vibing, and clarity that comes from that around the 15th. All right, Cancer 2s. If you know your natal sun is between 10 and 19 degrees Cancer, it's in the second decan of Cancer, and so you are Cancer 2s. This correlates to Cancer birthdays between, say, the 1st or 2nd of July and the 10th of July. It's basically the first 10 days of July. On the 16th is when the moon conjuncts your natal suns. And so even though it's not the new moon, this is a time for fresh start or clarification of yourself and your personality when it comes to your personal experience. All week long, your natal suns are pretty much semi-square to Venus and semi-square to Mars, especially, semi-square to Mars, especially for those of you who are born later in the second decan. So that's people born around the 9th, 10th. So what does this mean, a semi-square to Venus, Mars? There's some sort of stubbornness that you're going to have to confront when it comes to your sex life and your sexuality, what you desire or feeling desirable in general. There's like sort of a confrontation of that this week. Frustration, just a little bit. It's semi-square isn't too dramatic, but you're going to feel it because the moon is so active and there's so much going on to exacerbate our emotions. You're gonna feel it. And on the 19th, when the moon then conjuncts Venus, you're also gonna feel it because it's gonna suddenly get more emotional and more personal, and maybe even you're gonna need to be more romantic around that time on the 19th. And then on the 20th, when it conjuncts Mars, there could be sort of eruptions or explosions emotionally that could come out in anger, but it also could come out in major horniness. Like, I've been restricted too much. I don't want to be restricted anymore. It's going to feel like a hot flash, even if you're not having one. It's just, I need something. That kind of desperate push around the 20th. Just an FYI. All week long and basically all month long, Jupiter is sextile to your natal suns, which helps out so much because there is optimism and opportunity there and luck is on your side. So I would say for the next month, Cancer 2s, go for it. There's nothing you shouldn't go for. If you're pulled to it and it matters to you, go for it, because natal sun sextile to Jupiter is just such an exceptional time for opportunities to open up. Now, Jupiter is square to Mercury most of the week, which means you could have a lot of paperwork to do and you have to sift through a lot of shit talk or have to make some promises to get in those doors. But ultimately, there's so many opportunities out there. Why not? You know what I'm saying? And then long term, especially if you're born around the 9th or 10th of July, your natal suns are square to Chiron. So we're still getting through this. Square to Chiron is everything has to be hard. Why does everything feel like it has to be so freaking difficult? And that's just our lot in life for the next year or so because of the square to Chiron that's impacting our natal suns. This teaches you about yourself, about your patience level, about your tolerance, about self-control. That's what it's trying to teach you because Chiron ultimately is a teacher. And so this is when we learn our thresholds, and this is when we learn our capabilities as well as our personal responsibilities to our own self, our own attitude, and our own health, really. Like what hurts us and what doesn't. What should we be taking and what shouldn't we? Just an FYI. Cancer 3s. If you know your natal sun falls between 20 and 29 degrees Cancer, it's in the third decan of Cancer, and you are Cancer 3s. This correlates to birthdays between, say, the 11th and the 21st, or maybe up to the 22nd of Cancer. Okay, so what does that mean? Well, you are conjunct the new moon. All week long, you're conjunct the sun. Sun conjunct sun is courage, an extra energy boost. It feels like you have confidence that maybe you haven't had before. It's really just sort of an uptick in your own heart space and really not only knowing it, but believing in it. And self-support is what it is, right? Really being on your own side. And then when that moon comes on the 17th and conjuncts the sun conjuncting your natal suns, this is a tremendous feeling. This is a tremendous energy of, I know exactly who I am and what I want. And opposition to Pluto, whatever has to happen, I'm going to get it done, but I'm going to move this needle forward because I'm ready, square to the nodes, for this huge shift in my life. So extreme changes are going to happen to you guys, especially around this time. The sextile to Uranus all week long, it's been sextile to Uranus, it's been there. But everything, including the trine to Neptune, it's been there. But it's going to be exacerbated now. So something weird, something strange, something wonderful and ridiculously creative popping into your head, inspiring you, or happening to your life. It's going to surprise you in the best ways, right? Around this new moon. So I would love to hear the comments below, especially from you, from all of you, but especially from you guys, Cancer 3s, about what you see opening up for you or shifting inside of you around that new moon. Don't forget to like this video and subscribe to this channel so we can grow over here. We are growing and I'm so grateful. And then come on over to Born Without Boundaries Tarot for your week ahead tarot card reading. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in the videos.